Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Taylor TV podcast, where we'll be taking an interest in a certain gentleman, a certain Satanist, a certain super troll, James Hind. So, without any further ado, let's delve in deeper to the subject of what a Satan lover actually is. I'd just like to remind you all that you're watching an original creation from Taylor TV, and that this is available on a podcast for you to watch at your concernment. So without any further ado, let's get on with what is a Satan lover. No one knows who he or she really is, maybe not himself, as I will demonstrate using Hind's own words. He lives in a permanent state of a disassociation. What is a Satan lover? Is an inversion to Hind's own blog, What is a Satan Hunter, in which he rates me 13th in his list of 24 Satan hunters across the world. Having changed his Satan hunters to my Satan lovers, I'm explaining what I mean when I call them Satan lovers. So, throwing James Hind's words back at him and demonstrating his split personality, his dissociative identity disorder, and as a result demonstrating his danger to society, both in the real world and online, that he poses, that I believe is prudent of me as a responsible person in society to highlight this individual in the spirit of detecting and preventing a crime. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm used to doing that with evil people, having been a Royal Military policeman, a crime of child abuse. Who knows who James Hind is pretending to be right now on the internet, and will touch this later on in this discussion, as I let it be known to you that James Hind pretends to be a 12-year-old boy on popular online media sites that are frequented with young children and teenagers, in which he's a moderator. So, quoting from the dissociative identity disorder test, dissociative identity disorder, or better said as did for quickness, is one of several types of dissociative disorders diagnosed in mental health. To qualify for diagnosis, the person must have disruptive of identity characterized by two distinct personality states, which include alterations in behavior, memory, consciousness, cognitive, and sense of self. That sense of self is pro words when we talk about James Hind, and more become clear later. So people with this condition may typically experience recurrent gaps in remembering daily events, important personal information, or traumatic events that extend beyond ordinary. And now James Hind's own words really echo the sinister underlinings of his secret agenda. As we'll explore further in this podcast about James Hind, he compares his childhood abuse to the abuse done to child A and other children of satanic ritual abuse. In his own words, he says, "It is the case that when I fight for child A or other SRA children, their injustice reminds me of the injustice done to me as a child." So here we have him, in his own words, identifying with the traumatic satanic ritual abuse that is alleged to have taken place against children such as child A and other SRA children, as he mentions in his blog. Now, of course, this contradicts what he himself wrote in late 2021, claiming his childhood sex abuse was at the lower end of scale of sexual abuse. Yes, I'll repeat that in case you didn't hear it in the first place. He actually wrote in late 2021 that his sex abuse was at the lower end of the scale of sexual abuse that I suffered at the age of 6, along with my younger brother. So here we have, on one example, him saying, yes, when I was 6 o'clock, I suffered a low-scale sexual abuse alongside my brother, but yet in another breath, back in, or whatever year it may be, he's saying it is the case when he fights. No, sorry, this was last year as well. It's the case that when he fights for children such as children who have been named in serious, very serious SRA cases, that their injustice reminds himself of the injustice done to him as a child. So we have two differing contradictions here. Two versions of accounts. Two personalities. Two of many more. Up to 100, but usually 10. So DID, as we know, that stands for dissociative identity disorder, can vary enormously between one person and the next. Even skilled mental health professionals have difficulty diagnosing DID. People with DID experience something called marked discontinuity of sense of agency. This means that a person's sense of self is divided into at least two personality states. We see Hind refer to this when he wrote, and I think he wrote this in 2001, "I live in a permanent trap of dissociation, the gift given to me by my childhood abusers, where the world around me, my senses and my being don't feel real, and I live as if in a perpetual film where I am the observer of my own life but not the participant." And I have to read that again to really drive home the point of the DID, the dissociative identity disorder, and in which, in his own words, he uses that dissociation word again. I'll repeat what he said. "I live in a permanent trap of dissociation, the gift given to me by my childhood abusers, where the world around me and my senses and my feelings don't feel real, and I live as if in a perpetual film where I am the observer of my own life but not the participant." Now, isn't that scary in the complex of mentally ill individuals with didism, in the case of James Hind, allowed to run riot on the internet and still pose a risk to children online? So DIDs may have a discontinuous memory of their everyday life, which may seem split into different experiences. People with marked discontinuity can experience the sense of two separate identities, neither of which feel whole. This makes it hard to maintain a streamlined understanding of one's awareness throughout the day. A personality defines a person's unique way of thinking about and relating to the world. It is important for defining one's values and understandings of who they are. People with DID struggle with a sense of self because they have fragmentation of their personality. And we hear that in his own words when he says he feels as if he's an observer of his own life, but not the participant. They may go back and forth between different personality states, which can vary between extremes. For example, a person may move back and forth between a mellow, kind personality and a serious, menacing personality. According to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, on average, a person with dissociative identity disorder has 10 alternate personalities. However, it's possible to have up to 100. Dissociative amnesia is when a person is unable to remember the details of important events. Often the memory loss occurs around events that are stressful, traumatic or meaningful. People with orders like DID are more likely to experience dissociative amnesia around such events, such as serious hospitalization or car accident, or, in this case, extreme SRA, child abuse. People with DID have different identities, but they usually aren't experienced in equal measure. For example, a person with DID usually has a dominant personality, also known as the host personality. This is often to believe the person's true personality. The additional alternative personalities are referred to as alters. The host is often passive, dependent or depressed. In contrast, an alter may suddenly appear bubbly, loud or aggressive. Like borderline personality disorder and bipolar disorder, DID is characterized by changes in mental state. However, borderline personality disorder involves a pattern of instability in relationships, self-image and moods, and bipolar disorder is when a person has extreme shifts in mood states over periods of time. DID is different because a person experiences periods of memory loss related to distinct personality states. People with DID have difficulty remembering events as they occurred. This can be depersonalization, or when a person feels detached from the feelings, thoughts and memories of their own lives or their sense of themselves. Or derealization, in which a person feels detached from the present reality. And again, we have to go back to his own words when he says he feels as if he lives in a perpetual film where he's the observer of his own life but not the participant. Can you see it's how it's so sadly all fits into place? Going back to what James Hind himself admit that he lives in a trap of permanent disassociation. DID is sometimes mistaken for schizophrenia, since both can cause a person to talk out loud to themselves. In schizophrenia, a person experiences delusions, hallucinations, and disorganized speech. This can cause a person to talk out loud to themselves about something that isn't real. People with schizophrenia don't have multiple personality states. Rather, they have altered perceptions of reality. And again, that can be argued that James Hind is both DID and schizophrenic. In DID, talking loudly to oneself is more an externalization of thought within the context of multiple personalities. DID is different from schizophrenia because it doesn't involve a person thinking and acting upon things that aren't real. Pain-determined dissociative episodes are when a person develops a personality to help cope with the symptoms of discomfort. Researchers believe that people with chronic pain are more likely to develop dissociative states. the pains of childhood abuse. Some theories suggest that a person with DID has both an apparently normal part of personality, which allows them to function normally. They also have an emotional part of personality, characterized by survival instincts. The emotional personality is what allows a person to ignore pain. When this alternate coping state isn't accessible, it's hard to cope with pain. People with DID may have no idea about their split personality states. They only suspect something is wrong when someone tells them about their atypical behaviour, like memory loss or a strange event. Other times they are aware of the differences in their personalities and can feel distressed about it, although they may appear non-reactive. So, if you suspect that you or a loved one may be suffering from didism, it's important to seek help from a doctor to discuss symptoms and get an official DID diagnosis. Keep in mind that although dissociative symptoms may be common, true DID is rare and associated with experiences of overwhelming trauma and abuse. And in James Hind's own words, his childhood is on par with other children who have suffered terrible and extreme SRA abuse. So I think in this case, this rare occasion, James Hind is full on DID. More and more childhood victims of SRA are now adults, coming to terms with what was done to them as children. So it's with this in mind, one of the regular themes of this blog has been my reaction to Satan lovers. And I would like to deal with 3 items in this blog post. So, now using the same words as James Hind, we begin. What is a Satan lover? There are 3 required conditions that will result in a Satan lover being listed and challenged by SatanicViewsMattTaylor and I'll stop it there because it's quite interesting that on James Hind's blog, his opening sentence read, "What is a Satan hunter?" The 3 required conditions that will result in a Satan hunter being listed and challenged by SatanicViewsMattTaylor and It's like me saying, and that's goodbye from Guerrilla Democracy News, and it's goodbye from me, when we are both the same entity. I wouldn't have finished it there, but you can see how he says they are challenged by him and me, but they're both me. So it's both by, in actual fact, he's saying, and are challenged by myself and myself, clearly showing his didism. So onwards. So as I make the point, by saying SatanicViewsMattTaylor and he's displaying 2 personalities. One of which is being the world's leading proponent of Satanism and a crusader against child abuse, of which he has proved to have protected paedophiles. Remember what he said about defending children, about choosing that mission above millions of others to dedicate his life to. Now this is an extract from James Hind's blog in 2021. As the only cause of a million causes I could have fought, fighting Satan hunters is the cause I feel motivated to throw my life behind. At a vast expense of money, energy and time out of my life. So the question of what my agenda is in fighting Satan hunters is an important one. I mean, I don't know about you, but does that come across as pretty extreme? And I need to drive home this point before I carry on and fully introduce this demonic entity otherwise known online as James Hind. The list of Satan hunters that will be challenged in 2022 by SatanHunter.com and I, again, the two personalities. So, what is a Satan lover? And throwing the words right back at James Hind. A Satan lover is an individual who promotes vehemently, and I use the word vehemently intentionally, the non-existence of satanic ritual abuse, SRA, such as that promoted by Angela Power Disney, Jeanette Archer and David Icke, that claim a targeted individual or group of people torture, rape, murder and eat children in the worship of Satan. Such Satan lovers deny satanic ritual abuse for reasons of power, fame, financial gain, revenge or ideology. The 3 required conditions that will result in a Satan hunter being listed and challenged by SatanLover.com and I. That Satan lover is denying the existence of ritual abuse. That the Satan lover has in their actions, in my opinion, harmed or abused a child. The Satan hunter is based in the UK, or the child victim of the Satan lover is based in the UK. So I'd just like to repeat that just for clarity. The 3 required conditions of being labelled a Satan lover are: 1, that the Satan lover denies the existence of satanic ritual abuse. That number 2, the Satan lover has in their actions, in my opinion, harmed or abused a child. And number 3, the Satan hunter is based in the UK, or the child victim of the Satan lover is based in the UK. The list of Satan lovers that will be challenged in 2022 by SatanLover.com and I. Again, demonstrating my did-ism. The list may be added to. So, the following names are the names of Satan lovers whose character, narrative and networks will be challenged by SatanLover.com and I in 2022. The names on this list are mainly those I have some personal knowledge of in the satanic ritual abuse cases I have dealt with in the last 7 years. So number 1, Thomas Niedermeyer from Germany. Number 2, Chris Brindle, aka Grobnob from Preston, the UK. Number 3, Plisco, the Bell End from Dorset, UK. Number 4, Rhys Leverick, aka Muttley from Cambridge, UK. Number 5, James Hind from UK. Number 6, Karen Irvin from London, UK. Number 7, Richard Dougal, aka Fruitcake Muncher from UK. Michelle Bingham, aka Sparkle from Glasgow, UK. Danny Jones, aka Lyndon Warden from West Midlands, UK. Number 10, Aidan Lashbrook, aka Lucifer, stroke unlisted from the UK. Number 11, Dentaragon, UK. 12, Shiva Burton, UK. 13, Shelley Moe, aka Shelley May O'Brien, UK. Number 14, Sharon Gale, Portsmouth, UK. Number 15, Blakewood, Lincolnshire, UK. Number 16, Lee Jessen, UK. Number 17, Nadia London, UK. Number 18, Tink, aka White Walker, aka Tanya, UK. Number 19, Anne Dragoin, North West, UK. Number 20, Brent Lee, UK. Number 21, Andrew Ross, UK. Number 22, Vanguard Supreme, UK. Number 23, Faniel Gray, Glasgow, UK. And number 24, Charlie's Girl from the UK. So thank you for listening. This is just the first part of a bigger expose of reading James Hind. What will we doing next in our next part of this? I This podcast will be reading out where the kids are. The shocking reality of online chat rooms. This is the Hoaxtead's response to a blog put forward by James Hind, but we'll be discussing that in part 2. So I hope you will join us back there, and thank you ever so much for listening, and look forward to seeing you in part 2 coming soon. Thank you for listening. Taylor TV Podcasting.